So what we want to spend a bit of time is talking about development of co-production, as I said. Here at HPFT, we've got a Great Together strategy. You can see that the logo's in the top left-hand corner of the that slide there. And it's very much centred around service users and carers being at the heart of everything we do. So over the next 50, 60 minutes, I'm going to just aim to share with you the journey that we've had in involving lived experience and quality improvement in the trust. And we'll have a consideration about what our approach to co-production is. So we'll look at some of the enablers and some of the challenges that we've had. And we'll get a little bit of feedback from Michelle, and hopefully Len will have joined us on our QI training journey with lived experience. And hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end to just have a conversation about any useful hints and tips that you might want to take away, and an opportunity for you to perhaps ask myself or each other any questions you've got. Does that sound okay? Can't see anybody now at all, so you know, if people are nodding and putting thumbs up.
We had nodding and thumbs up.
Michelle, will you keep an eye on all of that for me, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, HPFT, for those of you that don't know us, we don't just work in Hertfordshire, as you can see from there. We provide a range of services across the east of England. Within Hertfordshire, we do adult, community, children's and learning disabilities. And we provide community learning disability services and some inpatient learning disability services down in Essex, and in community in Buckinghamshire. And more recently, we've started to, well, we've always, for as long as I can remember, done medium secure services and inpatient learning disability services in Norfolk and Waveney. And in June this year, we successfully took over the community learning disability services in Norfolk and Waveney. So you can see quite a spread out organisation, which I think is fairly not untypical of a lot of NHS trusts now, where we all seem to be branching out a little bit. So we have 56 buildings across 33 sites. So that just paints you a picture, really. We also have devolved adult mental health, social care responsibilities wrapped up into all of that as well. So, what is co-production? I'm guessing that you're here. I'm probably preaching to the converted, but we see it very much as a collaborative approach that helps us work with people who use our services and people who care for people who use our services, with the understanding that we're doing that as equal partners. So I've been around the NHS over 20 years now, and the days of doing two have gone, and it's now doing with. So that in itself is a really positive move forward. So we look to engage groups of people, ideally at the earliest stages of service design, development and evaluation, so that we can move away from that premise of, we try to work with people coming with a blank sheet of paper, so to speak, as opposed to coming with a sketched outline of what we want to do, which, in some cases that may be a necessary evil, but it doesn't really smack of co-production in its truest, fairest sense. So we recognise that people with a lived experience are always best placed to advise on what supports and services will positively impact their lives. And we'll hear a little bit from Michelle, and hopefully Len will join us a little bit more about what that lived experience is that they bring so well to quality improvement for us. So we committed as a trust to being great together.
James, Len has turned up now.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for letting me know. Sorry, Len, it's taking you as a challenge to go. Len, would you just introduce yourself to everybody, please?
Yes, my name is Len Goff, and I'm an expert by experience, and I got my certificate for achievement of CQI Leaders Programme on the 4th of May 2022. and I've been involved with the trust ever since on co-production.
Thank you, Len. So we've worked really hard as an organisation to bring in the experience of service users into the work that we do, with that recognition that if we're trying to make improvement, it's very difficult to make improvement for people without involving people. So we've used our approach as the flower. I think it's probably the best example of it on the right there. And many of you will be familiar with this, if not all of you. And it starts at the heart of it with the people. And it's about branching out from there, about the sharing of information, about what proposed changes that we might want to be making so that the people that use our services can better understand what that means. And there's a variety of different ways of doing that. I'm not going to read all of that because it's there for you to do. Consultation, we think, is quite an important element of what we do, and we continue asking people's opinion on what we're doing, why we're doing it, but equally asking them if they've got any better ideas or other options that they might consider bringing to the party, so to speak. Engaging is a really crucial part of that, and we do that through a variety of forums and a variety of advisory groups, but it's about ostensibly listening to people and understanding what the issues are and being, I guess, open to discussing ideas for change. You know, I'm very much of a mindset that there are always different ways of doing things. And there are always better ways of doing things. And unless we ask the question, we empower people and give them an opportunity to share their ideas and experiences, then it can be quite difficult to take that forward. We've done a lot of co-design over the years that I've been working in HPFT, but also within the CQI team. And it's very important that we get people who have got that lived experience or that learnt experience so that we can really drill down into what does work for you and what doesn't work for you. But also we've got the co-production there about having equal partnership with people with the learned experience. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. This is some of the key principles that we work with as an organisation and when we're working with our service users and carers and our experts by experience. We provide a CQI leaders programme for staff and experts by experience that spans over about 7 or 8 months. And everybody is involved in that. As I said, we encourage and involve service users in that. One of the things that we've always had feedback from a lot of our experts by experience is about the scheduling of meetings. So being respectful about what is a good time for them. We know that an early start, a 9:30 start for some of our experts by experience is not always the best time for them in terms of, perhaps education and perhaps in terms of other commitments that they may have. So being respectful that their time is just as important as a professional's time. One of the criticisms we used to get quite a bit was that we didn't always share the information in a timely fashion for people. I'm guessing many of us on here have pitched up at a meeting without really having any information or the relevant papers, or they've arrived an hour before. And the feedback from our EBEs was actually, we can't really work like that. We'd like to have a review of the documentation beforehand, and it gives us an opportunity to really review it. It gives us an opportunity to think about what are some of the questions we want to ask. So wherever possible, if you can share information with people as soon as you can, our experience is that the outcome of that is much better. And one of the things that we do, and we'll do it after this today, is after we've had a co-production or engagement opportunity, we will debrief with the EBEs. So I will make contact with Len and Michelle once we're all finished, and we'll sit down. We'll have, how was it? What, did it go well? Could we have done something better? Etc. etc. So having that feedback loop is really important. You will all know this. Using acronyms, we invent them for fun in the NHS. And lots of acronyms that I might be familiar with in HPFT might mean different things in another organisation. So try to be used clear and relatable language. I'm sure that I'm not telling any of you anything that you don't already know and don't already practice, but it is so easy to just slip into the vernacular of acronyms that is so beloved by the NHS. Prepare your experts by experience. Make sure that they have got all of the information that they need, that they've been briefed. We met on, I can't remember what day it was, it's Thursday or Friday last week, to go through the slides and have a conversation and make changes and some alterations, just so that both Len, Michelle and myself are aware of what we're doing. Productive discussions. Try to foster an open environment where the experts by experience feel comfortable, feel able to seek clarification and express their thoughts. I think one of the big challenges that it's in there is about being patient. Not everybody has the confidence and the experience to challenge the professionals who may or may not have been involved in their care. So it's about just giving people that time and that space to be able to feel able to share with the group what they're talking about. Questions times at the end. I've already mentioned it a little bit. It's about having time for a debrief about the content. It's about taking time to listen to the thoughts, feelings about the meeting. And I think it's just a common courtesy, and it's just a kind of professional, respectful thing to do, is, to behave with experts by experience in the same way that you behave with your colleagues. Yeah. It's often very easy to forget that our experts by experience are professionals in their own right. They have careers, may have had careers. And it's so easy to just forget that they have a life outside of them. So those are just some of the key principles that as an organisation we'd like to keep in mind when we're working with our experts by experience and looking at that core production rate. So we have a continuous quality improvement programme that we deliver. It's about empowering the lived experience that we have. So we very much want to enhance and use the skills of those with the lived experience so that we can make our collaboration more effective. And we provide, as Len mentioned it there, we provide a continuous quality improvement training. And it's available to all staff, but it's also to our service users and carers and our health access champions. And for those of you that may not be familiar with health access champions, they are paid members of staff who work in our learning disability services. It's about equipping them with the knowledge to be able to actively participate in projects. So rather than just parachuting somebody in and introducing fish bones and introducing problem solving and introducing driver diagrams, stakeholder mapping and process mapping, we actually train we're trying to train as many of our experts by experience in that same programme that gets delivered to the staff, so that they, when they get invited in, and we expect an EBE to be involved in all improvements and innovation that we have within the organisation. So they're able to participate as full members of that group and not coming into it with people talking about something. With respect to the hacks, we took our 8-module continuous quality improvement training program, and we did down to an easy read version for our colleagues in learning disabilities. And they are very, very active in working within learning disability services in mostly notably across Buckinghamshire, but they're able to offer ongoing training and support to some of the teams that they work with. So you can see at the bottom now, we've had 40 EBEs completed our CQI introduction training. We've got 12 who've done and completed the full 8-module CQI leadership training. 6 hours over 6 hours, 8 sessions. And we've got 3 that completed that CQI leadership training at the moment. For us, as I said, the importance of providing this is about giving them confidence and empowering them, because it gives and instills a confidence in their lived experience. It enables them to meaningfully participate in the work that's being done. It improves skills for partnership. It helps everybody to think about the value from each other's perspectives. It talks about, the lived experience and professionals. It just embeds, provides a much nicer way for staff and EBEs to work together. And the training provides that lived experience, and it helps to bring in the essential principles and methodologies. As I said, it's not unfamiliar to our experts by experience when they're coming in. They know what we're talking about. So when we talk about, we're going to do, the next thing to be looking at is doing a fishbone diagram. They're aware of what that is. They've had to do one themselves for the project they've brought in. So it just helps to give better outcomes for going forward. So this is an indication of the improvement in lived experience across from 2017 to 2024. You can see the gradual increase in the improvement with all lived experience activities. You'll notice that in 2022, we had a significant drop-off. When Michelle and I then were looking at this last week, we were all three of us thinking, somebody's going to ask us why that dropped off. And I didn't know then, but I do know now. I thought at first it might be an aftermath of COVID. I know it's a little bit further down, but in actual fact, that drop-off was when the Trust introduced a new booking and booking and expenses system for experts by experience, and that is why we saw a significant drop down, 23% to 10%. That's now been put in place, and you can see that we've had a nice gentle increase of service users and carers being involved in our activity. So I think it demonstrates really nicely for me the importance of getting people involved as quickly as possible. One of the things that we do for all participants in our CQI Leaders Programme is we do a pre-skills analysis. So you do a personal skills analysis, and then you do one after the programme's finished. So you can see there the blue for our experts by experience is where they scored themselves as part of that assessment before commencing the programme. And the orange, I think it looks like orange anywhere, is when they were asked the same questions again after. You can see that everywhere has improved. Some places significant improvement in their understanding and how they would work with that. But what's interesting for us is, and it gives us, as the teachers of that programme, that we still need to do some work around statistical process control charts and run charts and parallel graphs. And that whilst there was a degree of improvement in their knowledge and understanding, it's not a lot. So that's something that when we go forward with the next cohort of experts by experience that we want to look at as a group, how can we better improve the learning for the people using the course. And if I'm honest, we do this for staff as well. It's always those three that our staff always feel that they don't always necessarily feel that they still better understand it. So again, it just further demonstrates we need to just think a little bit more about how we teach those elements of the. This is a group of staff and experts by experience from a recent cohort. The three people are on it will be on your left, are health access champions. There's a mix of other carers there and service users and staff. And again, it's just about, I'm not going to read out all of the speech bubbles, but it gives you a demonstration of, we have a really, really good mix of people in the room. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to invite Michelle first and then Len to they're going to talk to you for the next 10, 15 minutes, just about, they're going to start with this one. So Michelle, do you want to just reintroduce yourself for anybody who's just joined us, and I'm going to ask you what inspired you to get involved with HPFT and quality improvement, and if you could just give us a bit of a brief outline of some of the projects that you've been involved in, and then when you've done that, I'll invite Len you to do the same, please.
So I sort of got involved with this. I was in the Service User Council, and I think James Spence just picked out a few of us to start this. And I went in, Len was there as well. I think we were the first cohort, and it was a completely new experience, like learning about fish diagrams and all this sort of stuff. I found it very, very interesting, but it was very, very new, and it helped that we could remind ourselves. We did a few extra ones afterwards, like reminding us afterwards, because I started to forget a bit. And since then, I've been involved in loads of CQI projects. I was involved in the new depression pathway, in the personality disorder pathway, with Wren Ward, which is an older people's ward, doing things like booklets, just so many things that I've lost count of it, and recently involved in CAMS because of my daughter as well.
Len, could I ask you the same question, please?
Yeah, I mean, very briefly about me, if you want. I mean, there is a write-up. I don't know if anybody's
please
read
do
it.
that.
All right, fine. Well, with me, I had to take voluntary retirement from work in 2013 because of physical ill health, and then my mental health came back again after many years, and I somehow got involved with the trust. I was doing lots of work for the trust, but it didn't always go that well, actually. I was being invited in for things, and I was left to sit for an hour and a half or an hour or sometimes 2 hours, and silent, because nobody bothered to involve me in the discussion in the first place. And I very much felt at times that I was just being wheeled in as the person with a mental illness, and that was enough. It was a tick box session. That wasn't the case in all the things I was doing. I mean, there was excellent people within the trust that didn't work that way, and they did involve me. But I never really felt any worth, at that particular time, because I didn't feel. I often wondered how much my voice was valued. Nobody ever gave me any real feedback on that. And I was around all these different professionals that, that seemed to be talking in their own jargon. But I never got any feedback on my input when I went to things. But it was when I did that, when I was invited by James to do the certificate of achievement in CQI Leaders Development Program in 2022, I came out of that with a different perspective. And I think also that message must have got through to a lot of the staff within the trust, because I was starting to feel valued when I went to things. I was being asked for my input. Now, sometimes you don't have a big input because obviously you don't just talk for the sake of talking. You talk only when you feel as though you can give something that can be useful to a meeting. But most of the work I was doing at the trust anyway was interviews. So I was on interview panels. I became chair of the Service User Council. I was involved in things like the Making Services Better program. I was involved doing a suicide awareness program, which we pinpointed different types of suicidal thoughts. So I've been involved in lots of different things, and I still am. I just feel now that things have changed since I did the course, and I think possibly it's a change of attitude within the trust as well. Not that I'm blaming people, I think they were doing a really good job, but they value me now, and they value the comments, because I've got the lived experience of mental health. And I also worked as a mental health charity worker for about 30 years. So I do know something about it. And I think the comments and contributions that I make to anything, people can listen to them. You know, we don't always expect that people are going to take up what you're saying. You know, that's not the way things go. But at least if people listen, you feel as though your voice is valued, and you've got a place when you go to something. And now, I mean, we're beginning to see not just myself, but people like Michelle and other people that are involved. We're beginning to see how our views on things, or our comments, or our experience of things is actually helping to change the services as well. You know, in particular, looking at clinical letters and care plans and the wording is used and who this information is sent out to, things like that. So there has been a big change in the trust, and I feel that you know, we just need to get across to you today as well. You know, experts by experience are not involved in meetings to take over from the professionals. We're not doing that. You're still the professionals, and you're the ones that are doing all the hard work behind the scenes. But we do feel as though that we do have a contribution, a big contribution into bringing about changes within the services and trying to improve things. I mean, things evolve all the time. And that's me, James.
Thank you, Len. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you. So,
can I say, James, I haven't got anything on my screen at the moment. I've only got people's faces.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you telling me that. I'll tell you what it is. So I'm going to invite Michelle to talk about some of the challenges. So what, you know, if you could think about, Michelle, what some of the challenges were, where we did not get it right. Let's start to go into that a little bit more. What could we have done better? And then there's an element there about unconscious bias as well. So over to you, Michelle.
Well, it's quite interesting to think about the progression. And one of the first projects I was involved in was the personality disorder pathway. And it went from when me and the carer joined the first meeting, the psychiatrist said very loudly to someone next to her, "What are these two doing here?" You know, they had a set amount of time, stuff to get through, and understand why we were there at all. I feel like I almost sort of butted my way in a bit with that project. So I sort of got more and more involved, and then it became like a whole co-production CQI thing. And we went round all the different teams and delivered training. And I felt very, very much involved. And even now, even though that was quite a while ago, that was before lockdown, they still come back to me and say, "Oh, can you come and join this meeting?" And there's a few problems that they want to solve, like there's a problem or issue with the crisis plans, for example. So they've got back to me to try and sort of work through that. So, I mean, that was one of the first things I was involved in. But yeah, it's gone from sort of this comment of why are they here, what are they doing, to really, really involving us. I've normally had like really positive experiences. I have had a few negative ones. There was a team that I was part of recently, a new CQI project. This isn't typical. It was a bad experience, but it doesn't happen like that very often. But they were so unfriendly. One of them, it was someone, me and my daughter used to go use their services, and she turned around to me and said to me, "What are you doing here?" And then there was tension in the room. When I was talking, I could tell that there was tension. And then afterwards, I thought I'd been quite, as I normally am, like quite helpful, making comments. I got a phone call saying they didn't want me involved because my daughter was discharged from the services by then, and they said that they felt uncomfortable having an expert by experience in the room. They didn't want to have an expert experience involved in their CQI project. So I was actually quite upset because I've never quite had that experience before. But then, I complained to James and some of the other involvement team. And then the person in charge of that meeting got back to me, and we had a meeting, and she said she was happy for me to be involved. It shouldn't have happened. They're doing a massive CQI co-production thing soon. And they can't, and this team can't just decide they don't want any experts by experience involved because it makes them uncomfortable. And I think also I was personally asked to do this because my daughter had used those services as well. So I did find that quite upsetting. And I think people have got to accept that, it might be uncomfortable if you have an expert by experience. We might challenge you. I don't think I'm ever really rude or angry. I mean, some people do get they can be emotional times. But I found that a very unpleasant experience, and I have been told since that I can be involved, but it's given me a bit of a sort of sour taste there, I think. And I think the things that could have done better is just be more welcoming, and don't think I'm there to just tell you everything you're doing wrong. I'm there with ideas and suggestions and things. So I think that was not a very good experience, I would say.
I'd agree with that. I was very upset about that, the way that you were treated in that respect as well. So I'm pleased that it's been sorted, shall we say.
I haven't heard anything for quite a while now, so I don't know, but I think it has, but I don't know.
I think so too. Thank you, Michelle. But I think you're right. It is a demonstration that, I think it's for many organisations. When you get it right, you get it right, and when you get it wrong, it's often really wrong. So it's encouraging to hear you share what your experience there was, because I don't think we don't want to paint a picture here that it's all sunshine and roses at HPFT, because it's not. But I think what is really positive here is we have the systems in place that allow us to have these grown-up conversations, because we are all grown-ups, whether we're a doctor, a social worker, a service user, or an involvement lead. You should be able to have grown-up conversations about things like this. So thank you, Michelle. So Len, I appreciate you can't see the screen. So what are some of the challenges for you? Have you got any examples or experiences when we didn't get it right, and what could we have done better?
Well, I think, James, I've got many challenges, actually. I wake up with them every day, but see, my illness is paranoid schizophrenia, and I beat myself up when I come away from something and I think I've been treated badly. I don't say it there and then, and that's what people, I think, they have to look out for, how somebody feels if you leave them out or you treat them in a way that they're not really wanted. I think the danger is, for me, and I don't know whether you've noticed it, James, but I think, I think you're needed when people are trying to develop things. Now, your ideas are needed because you're in the development stage of something.
Yeah.
But when you come to the end of that and it's implementation time, that's when you get left out again. And I've been to 2 meetings in the last 2 weeks where that's happened to me again, the old style, where there were so many professionals there and everybody had something to say. They forgot you were there again. You weren't asked anything, you were just sitting there. And you can say it's nice to sit there for 2 hours and to get paid for it. You get £24, but it doesn't make you feel very worthwhile when you come away from something like that. And that's when it starts to get to me. You know, what do they really think of me? The paranoid thoughts and things like that. I think that's when it's when it gets to that goal setting stage.
Yeah.
That's when people really need to look out, because that's what's happened to me. And unfortunately, the person that was in charge of both of those meetings is somebody that I really admire, and like.
Yeah.
But she's got a very, very responsible job in the trust, but they probably don't realise what they're doing or how somebody else feels.
Yeah.
That's what I would think. But a bad experience or negative experience is that, really. I don't think I've ever come away from one where I've been like Michelle's experience, where she's been asked not to attend something, but I've come away from meetings feeling deflated and self-doubt and worthless because of the way I was treated. And I don't think it was just paranoia. I think that's what really happened, but I think the paranoia is the after effect of that.
Yes, it doesn't help, does it? And I think that just really demonstrates, Len, doesn't it, the importance of having those debriefs after the sessions, so that you have an opportunity to share. Well, actually, James, this is how I felt during this meeting, as opposed to just being left to your own thoughts.
Well, I think just for the people here that have attended today, I think we've come along leaps and bounds as far as involvement or expert by experience involvement, and things are evolving all the time. I think the problem is we need to get new people in, and new people won't come in if they go through a bad experience. They go through the bad experience, they probably never want to return again. So if you want new faces coming in, I mean, I'm old, I'm 77, I need 77. 10 years time, I won't be probably on the screen with you all, but you need new faces coming in. And there will be discouragement amongst people that, because the experts by experience talk amongst each other, unfortunately we do. And if they think they're going to go through a bad experience and feel awful, they're probably not going to join the trust. Or if they do, they're going to drift away very quickly, unless we start to think about, the after effects of the way we behave around people. That's all I'd like to say.
And I appreciate that. Thank you, Michelle, as well. You've started to think about some of these things. So, just very briefly, you've said a little bit about what went well. You've said a little bit about the differences that you see and feel in co-production HPFT. And you've said a little bit there about going forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move us on to the next slide, and I'm just going to invite people I'm going to come off sharing in a second, but I'd just like us all to just have a 10-minute, just under 10 minutes discussion about reflections and experiences, anything that you've heard that resonates with you, or if there's anything that you've heard that you think, well, actually, could you tell us a little bit more about that? And I guess it's just an opportunity for you to have a think about how you might have some challenges and opportunities in your own organisation. So I'll put the
Can I just refer, Angela's put something about how you can support them, and I was saying how debriefs and pre-meets are very important, and particularly if it's going to be like a complicated meeting. And there's one called like for example, the Innovation Fund panel that we do that can go over my head a bit. So just having a pre-meet is quite useful, and a debrief, and and it's when you talk about a traumatic story or something that's really hard, if someone just afterwards said, well, that people do thank you for sharing that, I'm aware it was hard, and then saying that if they need to have a break and step out of the room, that's fine. Like scheduling a break in is quite a good, they can have a tea or a coffee or something, and just sort of ask and tell them they can say whatever they feel comfortable with. But it's really nice to see that you've actually asked that question, that you've given it some consideration. So just a few ideas.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts, any other observations from experience that you've got within your organisations, or have you got any questions that you might want to ask us?
But I think it'd be nice if the people on the screen today could actually ask questions. They must
absolutely. So Rachel's got a hand up. There you go, Rachel.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask about governance and delivering training to those who are external to the trust, because certainly within our trust, as far as I'm aware, we don't deliver quality improvement training to our we have people partners, which will be the same as your experience experts. So I just wondered whether there was anything additional in terms of the governance structure around delivering that training. Would be keen just to understand if there's any logistical things that are needed for that.
I was one of the governance leads in the organisation before I moved across to the CQI team, and we've never really encountered any real problems with governance. The biggest, I think, one of the biggest challenges we have, and Len and Michelle have already mentioned a little bit, is about how we what's the word I'm looking for? How we pay. I'll use the word pay because that's the only word I can think of at the moment. Is how we pay the service users when they're working in there.
Make sure you've got funding to pay them.
But it was also things about how it didn't impact on any benefits that they might be claiming, how many hours a week that they were allowed to work. So in my experience, those were the biggest obstacles that we had from a governance perspective. In terms of when we were actually delivering and participating in training, obviously, experts by experience, we encourage people not to bring information about other service users and that into the room. So we try to make sure that we're not talking about live people in terms of actively involved with the service. But no, I've not really experienced anything, Rachel, over the 5 or 6 years that I've been part of this team. Governance is, we have reporting structures that we go through into teams governance meetings and into quality and risk management, but generally I've certainly not encountered any real problems.
Thank you.
Lindsay?
Oh, I've got a million questions for you, but
That's all right.
I'm just very aware of time. I'm just trying to think of, I suppose I'm trying to do something similar, having been a public member myself. I've got a long-term condition. Now I work for the NHS in Wales. And I suppose some of the things that come back at me when I'm trying to encourage the involvement of people in our improvement work is the fear, like a general fear from those who are working in the NHS. I won't use the word professionals because not everyone is, are they? But those who are working, about the perceived sort of threat, I suppose, that public members are perceived as being, like we don't really want to air our dirty laundry in front of them, things like that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'm not saying that's for everybody, but I'm just I suppose it's a question really for Len and Michelle, really, I suppose, is that if you were like to sell your involvement to people, what would you say that you bring the most, you know, what do you bring to this conversation and this work that we can use to sell to others, I suppose, really? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Have I made sense?
Makes sense,
Yeah.
I think you're trying to say, like, how do you keep it professional and when you're bringing them together? I guess like what James was saying is, like, at the beginning, like, don't think of it as the staff and the service users, think of it together. And I guarantee everyone here, even if you don't have a diagnosis, at one point you've been depressed or you've been anxious, or, you know, you've had your own difficulties, and just trying to think of it as a partnership rather than, I mean, you will get, I know Len and I have had experiences, you will get some EBEs who are angry and want you to know how angry they are because they've had bad experience and stuff, and you will get that with some people, but you know, you end up finding the people that you work on better with. You'll get on with different people, different others, but I think see it as a partnership rather than airing your dirty laundry, and, you know, talk about confidentiality and things, and just sort of see us as equals rather than, like, is the way I'd say.
And when I was saying about dirty laundry, I wasn't necessarily saying about public members. I was saying about the health bodies.
It's a phrase I use a lot, because it is. I think it is. There are a lot of teams and clinicians within teams that don't want to air their dirty laundry. Then, and then I'll move us on quickly.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, I think what I'm going to say to you, Lindsay, is kind of really what Michelle has kind of said, but I just say it in different words, really. I mean, I think it's the job of the involvement team, really, to vet people, because I think we've got to be honest. You know, people are at different levels on the ladder of their psychosis or their illnesses, and I think it's the responsibility of the involvement team to kind of filter people out. You know, to find out what kind of level that they're at. Because what you don't want is for people to go into everything that they go into, moaning and complaining and thinking it's all about them alone. The services are not going to improve if you think that way. The only way the services are going to improve is if you go along to a meeting and you respect the people around you, show a little bit of dignity to everybody, and recognise that everybody has a voice to play in this, you know. So I think that's really where it ends, really, with the involvement team. And if somebody were kicking off and trying to focus things purely upon themselves, there's nothing wrong with the facilitator bringing some kind of halt to that. You know, I was talking about paranoia before, but if somebody were behaving in a way that was disruptive to a meeting and the meeting wasn't progressing, somebody has to take responsibility for that. You know, and I would have to accept that if I did that kind of thing. So I think that's really what it's all about. But I think how, as I said before, to go into any kind of co-production that you go into with a mind that's telling you, well, if I can contribute, I will. If I can't, then there's nothing wrong with being silent. But what we don't want is to be left silent, if you want. It's nice to have somebody say, Len, do you have something you would like to contribute on that? And if Len says, no, I don't really think so, then that's all right. I hope that was all right for you.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.
Andrea?
I think we're probably out of time. However,
I've got one more slide I want to share because I want to get some feedback from people. So,
if I could just ask in 30 seconds, Michelle, James, Jeff, if you were, Len, if you were to go back to the start of this journey of being involved for you, Len and Michelle, in improvement work, and James, for you bringing Len, Michelle and others into it. What's one piece of advice you wish you'd had? What do you wish you'd known that might help us as we try to go along our journeys?
Well, I think for me, and I know Michelle would want to contribute on this, when I first started off on my involvement, which was many years before quality involvement came along, what advice? Well, I think people need to, and I'm not trying to be insulting, please don't take it as such. I think people need to come off their high horse at times and just see themselves as being human beings, the same as we all are. Now, as I think Michelle's already touched on it, you know, there are many people that work for the trust that have their own experiences of life. You know, they may have suffered from mental health problems, they may be going through particular traumatic things at home. And it's important for the expert by experience to recognise that we're all going through our own journeys, you know, and we cannot look at the professionals, I call you all, and think that you've all got perfect lives, because it's not true, you know. And we've got to have a bit of compassion for each other and a bit of respect for each other. That's why I think that's really what it's all about. And if you start off from that basis, you're seeing people as human beings, not as a label.
Yeah. Thanks, Len.
That's what I think.
Sorry. Yeah. Michelle, just very
Very
briefly.
quickly, I would just say, don't be afraid to ask questions. You know, even if people are a bit, have a question, just don't be afraid, because otherwise, you know, you'll never know. If you don't know the jargon or you don't know what that means, just ask.
I think I'd echo the same, really. I think back to when I joined the trust in of Len and Michelle would have got the service that they got given, and if they didn't like it, they could lump it. To be brutally honest, it's not like that anymore. And I think for me that it's about, Len said it perfectly as a social worker, it's about compassion. It is very much, as Michelle said, asking people questions. So yeah, that's. Thank you. Right, I'm going to let you all go. I just would really appreciate some feedback. So there is a QR code on the screen. If those of you that are comfortable with using QR codes and all that kind of stuff, if you wouldn't mind just giving us some feedback on what it's been like for you today. I hope you can all see it. Is it still there? Can you see it? Yeah, okay. I'm going to let you all go. Thank you for taking time out of your busy Mondays. Mondays are always a hard day because the weekend's been and gone, that kind of stuff. I've put my email address in the chat there. If anybody wants to make contact with me or with our team, if you've got any, you know, Lindsay, you said you had hundreds of questions, please send them through. We're a relatively small team, but we're a friendly team, and we'll answer any questions to the best of our ability. And thank you for your time. It's been really nice to see you all, and have a good rest of the day, and be kind to each other.